All right, so we are discussing emotions and social constructionism. So we are going to start that. Right, Kennedy?
So we wanted to first start out by talking about the social construction is behind love. The interesting about this is that the idea behind social construction of love is that it isn't really tied down to a single reality. This happens because each person and each culture is different in how they show love and how love is received. Different cultures show their love with whether it be through different words, how they explain their love, their body language, their morals, what they think right and what they think is wrong within a relationship as well. For example, back during the Greek mythology times, Greek males were often known to have sexual relationships with young males just because back in this time, women and men they had more of like an asexual relationship once they were married. And they looked at young males as though they were worthy of having these young sexual romances instead of having them with women. The next one would be the 19th century. The same thing happened. Between a man and a woman, love was only shown when it was time to procreate. That's when the intimacy part of it was happening. Other than that, they would not have intimacy between a wife. Love is also very dependent on external factors. So, depending on which culture you're in, the love is going to be shifted. For example, in America, we show our love with different types of words of affirmation and different types of love as far as the way we show it. And in different cultures, they also show it very differently. For example, Asia, they are very different in how they show love and how the love is received. Americans are a lot more they're a lot more warm as far as like they give hugs to people. They are more affectionate, and people in Asia are a lot more standoffish. And it's also interesting to see that within the American culture, people also show the same love and the same tactics of love to their friends that they would a spouse. And for example, in Asia, that is strictly prohibited, and they do not show love that way. Next slide.
Alrighty. So love as a socially constructed idea. Berger and Luckman share that this idea means that there's no like one specific version of love for all people. So different societies and different cultures have their own unique, pretty much like understanding of the world that can be just like useful with how these people interact with society as well. So by this, it means that there is different types of right and wrong and moral and immoral for different societies and different cultures. So it differs from believing that there is this concept or point of view that many believe the world um, uses culture to guide that type of opinion, whether it's right and wrong or moral and immoral. This creates this cultural lens, and this cultural lens provides um, every individual in specific cultures to be able to determine um, by how their parents teach them what is socially acceptable. And it is pretty important that they understand that other people have perhaps similar understandings, but um, their versions of love and what is right and wrong can be completely different from other cultures. So, back in the modern Western era, um, if somebody was like grieving the death of loved one, it was more of a challenge and a work through for that person who died, um and like eventually letting go to that aspect. And yet in the romantic age, many people found it that it was normal for them to just keep holding on to their loved ones and not letting go. And so sorry. And it was just like, considered normal for them to just hold on to their loved ones. Now, there is this big argument that there that the French structuralist approach that reported love is a more irrational experience for the French, and it's more of like it takes control over, and they view love more not objectively but more like sentimental, whereas in the US it's reported that like love is more like the experience that is important, and um that is not necessarily uncontrollable, but that's their like version of romantic relationships. So we learned that in back in the days in the Victorians, um, just like Kennedy mentioned, men believed that it was moral for them to find a love and be interested in younger boys, and yet using women as an asexual partner and only to procreate. That was their concept of what love and attraction was for them. Yet later on, they grew and learned that it was more of a immoral aspect for them to connect with younger boys. So their views were changed to wanting and attract and being attracted to women, thus creating a further relationship or romantic relationship. Um, and then eventually, growing onto the different version of what love is. Next slide.
And so, as we know, love is a pretty general term. And so it can be difficult to define it because it's different in different cultures and it's changed over time. But the main theory that we have about love is that it includes intimacy, passion, and commitment. And so this can be seen through our actions and feelings and just our commitment to being in that relationship. And so every relationship is different. And so some relationships might have some more intimacy, while others have more passion, while others might be more focused on their commitment to each other. And so there's three different aspects of love that have happened over time. The first aspect is beloved. And the first idea about love was that people believed that they should love God. That was like the most important thing. And so, as we know, this has changed. And the current view is that most people want to fall in love with another person and share their lives with them. And so the second part of love that we have has to do with the feelings that we feel. And so in modern times, this often involves sexual feelings for each other. But in other situations and in the past, those feelings were not as important. Um, and these thoughts are often about just different characteristics we like about the partner. We hope to wish them well. Whenever we're feeling in love with someone, we want them to do well and to be successful. And so we have those positive feelings about them. And then the third part about just deals with the thoughts that we have about these people. We often spend time thinking about our relationships with others and just how we feel about the person. And often when we're in love, we have very positive thoughts about our relationship and our partner. And obviously, when those thoughts start to become negative, that usually means the love is decreasing or the relationship is struggling in some way and needs to be improved. And then lastly, the fourth one is the actions that accompany love. And so commonly when we're in love, we want to support and comfort our partner. We want them to know that we love them, and that involves different actions based on how people choose to be loved. Some people like words of affirmation, or some people enjoy service. And so it's important to show our love based on how people want it.
All right, so I'm talking about the importance of love and to other cultures. So conceptions of love are important to cultures, like in a lot of cultures, and they can be very different. Institutions arise when typified actions or classifications are shared, and like a marital unit is like a small scale like institution, whereas a government system would be like a large scale one. And concepts of love also indicate how specific individuals should react to each other. And they infect institutions with these relationships, such as marriage, courtship, and religion. And these institutions are impacted like by ideas about love, and such ideas indirectly address how one should feel and behave in like particular ideas of life. And then there's individualistic and collectivist societies. In individualistic societies, the majority of people base like their marriages like off of love, but in collectivist cultures, the majority of people base marriages off of like other like criteria. So like basically an individualistic is like the individual, and then the collectivist is kind of like social standing. Um, so we believe that conceptions of love frequently reflect a culture's views on the character of humans, and we think about how like connections between like various conceptions of love and human nature can be across time. And conception of love seems to be related to dominant thoughts about human nature that exist in a time period. So, for instance, during the Age of Enlightenment, the notion that love is a reasoned feeling was associated with the notion that people are rational by nature, and the notion that love is like an irrepressible emotion represented the Roman like assumption that people are not naturally like rational beings. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about the cognitive repercussions of the conception of love for individuals. So conceptions of love provide an important means for people to understand their lives and their relationships. And people may evaluate their thoughts, feelings, and behavior against the conception of love to determine if they love that person. And it appears that people may also evaluate a beloved, so like a significant other, to determine if they are in love. And when the information about one's life does not match the current ideas of love, one may regulate one's thoughts or feelings to match these aspects of love. So they may like do certain things or change things in their life. And love may be partially created by the person who experiences it. And mood regulation appears to be an inherent part of the emotional system. And input regulation could easily be applied to the emotional experiences of love. And people distort their appraisals of potential or actual romantic partners when it's necessary to kind of adhere to what their preconceived like notions of love are. Right, Suzie?
Okay. So romantic love is historically feminized. So there is this concept called princess syndrome, which is when girls grow up believing that they need to pretty much negotiate life as if it was a fairy tale. This girly girl culture just encourages girls to become more obsessed with pretty and pink things, and um, to know that there's like a knight in shining armor that's going to bring them the happily ever after that they deserve. This creates this culture that influences girls to grow up into becoming women who are living in this like false reality. This concept that they're constantly looking for someone who is gonna give them the the Prince Charming um, vibe to take care of them. Yet, how does a sense of belonging for women play in their concept of love and romance? Women do perceive like media portrayals of this princess culture to um, become a popular concept for them to of what makes sense of a romantic relationship, and is how women are pretty much developed to think of what romantic love is or romantic relationships are becoming, that we are needing and wanting a Prince Charming in our lives. Next slide.
And so there's been many different concepts over time about what love is. And in the early times, it was very, the idea about love was very an idealist type of love. And this was very involved of love at first sight, acts of passion, um, and just a very romantic love that just happened. You just met the person, your soulmate, and you fell in love. And this has changed a lot to a more realist idea of love that it involves time. Um, you choose your partner, you choose to be with them, and you have a relationship with them, and you build trust, and you have experiences with them, and this helps you to eventually fall in love with them. And so the media does have a big role in how society views love, whether it's with celebrities or with different movies, and just the ideas of how love should be. And often the things we see on the media aren't real. And so this kind of gets us into just that romantic love. But it's important to realize that the media isn't always real of how it portrays love. And so, an important model just based on love is the confluent love model. And this deals with just the relationship and just our self knowledge and realization. And this really deals with the realist type of love that we choose our partner, and the relationship we're in benefits us and it benefits the partner. And so we're able to stay with our partner as long as it's beneficial for the both of us.
All right, so next we're going to talk about ideologies of love and self. And historically, the Victorian era gave rise to ideologies of the self being revealed through true love, giving way to the US's idea of idealist love or love at first sight. Scholars contend that shifts in conception of love have accompanied socioeconomic transitions to late capitalism. And in addition, the confluent love model, as discussed in the last slide, is founded on the idea of the pure relationship, which is centered on the pursuit of self-knowledge and identity development, as love is viewed as both stability and flexibility as partners work toward achieving true self-realization. All right, Kennedy.
Okay, to kind of circle back to what Suzie said about princess syndrome, we can honestly tie this back to primary socialization. As young women, we are shown movies as kids, and in these movies, it shows how the women are treated like princesses and queens, and they find the Prince Charming and they live happily ever after. But honestly, from a small young age, we're taught to look a certain way, to act a certain way, what the beauty standard is, and how that kind of like follows us into our adult lives. It says negotiations of media portrayals are particularly relevant, as explained by Hecht in 2011. In the media has a distinct measurable impact on the viewer's comprehension of reality. So even though that we're watching these shows and these movies as kids, doesn't necessarily depict back to this is what reality is, this is how your life will be as you grow up and develop a romantic relationship. From a social constructive perspective, young women's understanding of media portrayals, romantic love, and intimate relationships will be influenced by the available cultural expectations and institutional arrangements, including the idea of marriage, including that of marriage. So, like I said, these movies are teaching us from a very young age of what romantic love should look like, what intimate relationships mean, and basically what marriage means as well. While popular literature and media offer an explicit focus on princess culture, the predominant focus of scholarly research on modern mediated messages that encompass love, ethics, scripts is on Disney movies. So like I said before I started, like all of this really ties back to Disney movies and these princess movies and showing us what we think we should look like, act like, and what our futures will turn out to be. Finally, while existing studios suggest women may be influenced by these stereotypes, additional research can shed light on conceptions of love in order to determine how young women relate definitions of love and romance to the princess culture, inclusive of and or beyond such Disney specific scripts. So basically, just tying back to that primary socialization of love and of these Disney movies and how from a young age we're taught to think a certain way, it kind of shows that even in the American culture, our upbringing is a little interesting as far as this princess culture and how we're letting media affect our ideals of love.
All right, so I'm talking about distancing, and the majority of women and like in the study in the second article avoided romantic love as it was portrayed in the media, and labeling such depictions of unrealistic romantic dreams in contrast to reality love. And due to their links with consumption, women occasionally stayed away from media representations. So they're like, oh yeah, that's not how things are like real in real life, you know. And such stories continue to be framed by rationalized love in accordance with the script of the people as being in command of love, while describing oversimplification in media. So that could relate to primary socialization, because princess movies have been a part of a lot of people's lives from like literally the second that they're born. So and women also expressively rejected princess and romantic cultural narratives, characterizing them as lavish or exaggerated, and juxtaposing them with the flaws of reality. All right. All right. To conclude, by a reasoned viewpoint, this romantic ethic separates love from emotions, treating love as a project to be worked on through the use of utilitarian and therapeutic frame. And so there is idealist, fantastical, and emotional love. And like women's selective expectations of how they became to understand the realities of romantic relationships, according to the argument, reveal like tensions between two currently like hegemonic conceptions of love. And so what needs to be done? In order to increase the options for how love might be expressed in a healthy way, this research underlines the necessity to keep questioning current like depictions of romantic love through the media and education and socialization and practice. So yeah, that should be it.
Good job, everyone.